From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge. Get off the sidelines and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
Hey guys, welcome back to the next edition of the Brian Covey Show. So as you know, we've changed the name over to Finding Your Competitive Edge. It's going to be an exciting season this year, and this is going to be our second episode in person. So I decided, why not bring on one of my good friends, somebody that's inspired me, somebody that's in the mortgage space, for all of you guys listening, has his own podcast. He's got all of his coaching stuff with I Love Coaching. We're going to talk about some things that he's not only overcome in his life, but some success he has today. And we're going to unpack some leadership. We're going to have some fun with this. So Chris Welton, we met. Gosh, it's been, a year ago now?
Year ago, January. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell the story as I remember it. Rene Rodriguez, many of you know him, and he sets up these Amplify in Person events, and we show up to the restaurant, and I'm like, okay, this is different. It's a different restaurant. It's very small, little table there. Basically, no one in the room do I know. And the funniest part was when Rene introduced himself, I'd never met Rene, actually, before that night in person. Rene's like, hey, man, it's good to see you again. I'm like, yeah, no, we've never met in person, which we'll talk about that later. And then I happened to see Chris, and he caught my eye. I was like, man, that guy, one, he's tall. He has a presence about him when he walks in. I was like, nice suit, looks good. I'm like, I need to figure out who this guy is and what he's doing. So we immediately connected, sitting across the table, like diagonally. I remember it visually. And from then, man, I just got to say, like, you've been somebody in my life I've just loved, like the back and forth conversations. And today I can't wait to unpack that, because I think what the audience is going to benefit most from is some of these conversations you and I have on the side. Now we get to share them with where they are and help them on their journey. And in a way, like, it's a little coaching for them to help them improve wherever they are today to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And it's funny because we do get on these calls and they just run like, what's next? Our brains start working, and we had that connection from the start. And I remember just meeting you and having conversations. I had no idea who Brian Covey was, right? I didn't know clue. Just a guy in the mortgage business, I thought. We talked through. Super humble guy. Then I started doing some research and saw all the things you did. And I said, man, this guy, we connected without even knowing anything about each other. Imagine once we start unpacking who we are to each other, because we're kind of polar opposites in certain areas. Dude.
Yeah.
And I was so right. Like, we just kind of took off, and you were very receptive to connecting with me right out of the gate. We just communicated. I remember you were getting ready to speak at the John Maxwell event a few weeks later, and I was on a run and shot you a little video that morning just to let you know, dude, how cool it was to hang out with you and how excited I was for you for being in that event.
And that meant the world. And those are some things I want to share with people. I don't want you to overlook and miss what just happened there. Like, if you don't invest and go to events, you're not going to meet people that can impact your life. So today, if you do nothing from the show, but this one thing is, you need to start showing up in rooms and getting in rooms you may not feel like you're ready for. You may not have the money for today. Like, we've all been there, but you have to get in those rooms, because it's the greatest accelerator to what you have. The second part, I love what you did. People miss this. You shot me that video, and you're one of the few people, like I could count on one hand. I was talking to Renee before I went out there, of course, and we were kind of doing our rehearsal and getting ready. But that video meant the world. Like, you don't forget those things. And so today in your business, if you're thinking, man, I'd really love to have more clients. I'd love to have more people come and want to use my services and work with me. Are you doing the small things like sending people videos just for no reason other than, hey, I want to encourage you today? If you're not, there you go. There's tip number 2. I mean, we're already dropping.
We're dropping dimes, man.
Like,
yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, for you, your journey. Why did you even sign up for Amplify? And what was that kind of catalyst? Like, why did you even sign up for a program like that? That's not cheap, takes time out of your day. What was going on?
First, Jason Purcell, who I work with at Certified Mortgage Planners and happens to be a friend of mine for 40 plus years, he went to the event and introduced me to who Renee was. I had no idea who Renee was. No offense, Renee. Sorry, I love you now, brother. But he introduced me to him, and I asked what he thought about it. He said it was pretty good, but didn't hit exactly for him the way he thought it would. And then I was on my coaching call. At the time, Bill Hart was my coach.
Yeah. And
I said, Bill, what do you think about me going to this Amplify event with Renee? And Bill was like, you got to go. You got to go. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to do it. I said, what I did first was I went to the event in August. It was a one-day event. It wasn't very expensive.
Yeah.
I went to the event because I wanted to make sure it's the investment I wanted to make. I'm sitting at the event and they offer a sale price, which is, they're really good at that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, it's $4,900 for 2.5 days. I have $5,000 I've put aside to redo my closet in my master bedroom. wonder how mad my wife would be if I took the 5,000 and did this. So I tried to reach out to her. I couldn't reach her. It was surgery day. She had surgeries all day. So I couldn't get to her. And I made the decision to go ahead and ask for forgiveness later. And I signed up. And she's like, I never have a problem with you taking money and investing in yourself because the rate of return is 10 times what it'd be on a closet. So that's how I got there.
Wow. Okay. So you don't know the story, but very similarly, over 5 years ago, I did something similar too. And one of the coaches that I'd signed up in a mentor still to this day, very same thing. And I remember I was so scared sitting in the office. I remember at a previous company. And I was like, man, things are just not going the way I want. Like recruiting's up and down, business is up and down. I don't really enjoy what I'm doing. Do I even want to do this? Like all these like things going through your head. And I remember going, I'm going to sign up for this event. And it was a different one. It was all structured around married businessmen with kids. And I was like, I want to be a better spouse. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better leader, all this stuff. It's like, I'm just signing up, put it on the credit card. Now, while I don't advocate for people going in credit card debt and going and doing those things, what I will say is every time I've invested in myself, you said it, that return is significant. You know, and I think we all have the fears. And I want people to hear that is like when you hear Chris share it, you hear me share, we all still have the same fears. Like today, I'm a lot more bullish. Like when I see an opportunity, I can evaluate it and I go, cool, I'm putting money down on that. I'm going to go do it. But for you, what does that look like when you're saying, I got to return, right? What is that process? Because you probably didn't always think that way.
No, I didn't. And honestly, I still came from a scarcity mindset investing the $5,000. I had to have that conversation with myself. Am I really worth investing $5,000 in? Oh, yeah. Right. Because that was just something that I had to process. But what I didn't realize until that time was the connections I could make at the events I went to. Yeah. I never put that together. And you and I had that conversation at that event. Ever since then, anytime I go to an event, I go VIP. Mm-hmm. I may not do like the meet and greet where it's like 30,000 or whatever. I'm not going to do that, but I can get into the green room with people and connect. So I always go VIP. And then the return comes to me because I connect with more people. And I use the acronym C.A.T, change, apply, teach. So anytime I go to an event, what can I change for myself? What can I apply? And what can I teach to others? When I started taking that in, I knew for sure I was going to get a return on every investment, every dollar invested in to do events like that. I'm going to sign up today after having this in my head. I'm going to do the coaching deal with it's a 10-person with Ben Newman, the boot camp. I'm going to do that today. So
the one in Vegas.
No, this one is in St. Louis.
Different one.
Yeah, this is in St. Louis, and you spend 2.5 days with him, kind of like Amplify, except with Ben. Right?
Love it.
So I'm going to invest in that today. Sorry, babe, I didn't ask for permission, but I'm going to do that. But it all comes down to understanding that we have to pour into ourselves to get something back. And when you said a minute ago about walking in, getting into those rooms that you don't know you belong in or whatever, Renee taught me a very valuable lesson about that. Because I, like most people, suffer from imposter syndrome. Ed Milet has imposter syndrome. And I talked to him about that. And he said, you know what imposter syndrome is? And I said, yeah, it's me being afraid to go in those rooms where I don't belong. He said, no. It's proof you're leveling up. Mm-hmm. So you should feel like an imposter more than you don't. And I said, dude, that's so good. I'm going to do that forever, right?
Yeah.
And that's continued what I do. Like, I'm not afraid to reach out to people that I've never met before that I want to connect with, right? I'm not afraid to ask them to do a Zoom call with me.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to ask them to be on my podcast. I'm not afraid to ask them for advice because I guarantee you at one point in their life, they ask someone else and they'll respect that.
Yeah. So I want people to make sure that you don't miss this, because when we talked about that VIP thing, I've been sharing that more and more. I was the guy that would just buy the entry-level ticket. I would sit in the back. I wouldn't network. I didn't enjoy that part of it. Like if you were to see me out today, you're like, I don't believe you. It's true. And I would not upgrade my tickets. As soon as I remember upgrading one of those first tickets, and I go, the amount of people that I got around that I wanted, because they're all there for the same reason. They want to level up. They want to meet really cool people. They want to do more business. They want to expand their life. That's who you want to be around. If you're around all the people that are doing a general admission, you're going to get that vibe, and that's who you're going to really assimilate with. It's going to bring you back down to bad habits and old patterns.
So the best thing about that, though, Brian, is if you go to an event in Vegas, okay? I'm not a fan of events in Vegas because I get sidetracked by other things, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to the Vegas events and you VIP, the VIPs all show up the next day. Mm-hmm. You look out in the room in general admission, half of them aren't there.
Yep.
Okay. Because they use that really as an excuse to get away from home.
How true.
So they can go gamble or do whatever. For me, I'd rather the event be in Orlando where I live at, or Nashville or whatever. But that's the difference between the VIPs.
Yeah.
And to second that, I always fly first class if a seat's available. Not because it's something that I can afford. I am bougie. I'll be honest with you. I like nicer things. I'm 6'5", and I don't fit in coach seats very well.
Yeah.
But the people that I meet when I fly first class, those are the people I want to be in rooms with.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made some unbelievable connections on airplanes, which is just crazy.
I've had some people tell me that, and when we have the chance to, I will upgrade, use points, do whatever. Because when you're there, you will inevitably meet someone if your radar is up. And what I learned to go in these events too is there's a lot of people that listen to our show that they do go to these events. Is you're not there to meet the speakers, right? So Albert and I talked about this before. It's like you're there to meet the people that are in the audience. Mm-hmm. And when you go with that mindset, and I think it was Stuman the other day, we were talking about this, we've got to go and think about reframing our brain when we go to these events. So I'd love to kind of shift gears because now that we've given them, I mean, those are the tips, right? You do VIP, you're there to meet the people that are there, and you show up, right? That's how you're going to start to move. And then the follow-up after is going to matter. How do you pick events now that you go to? Because I don't know about you, but I feel like overload. Like every day I'm like, come to my event, come to my event. Man, actually 80% of them look great. They're really good.
Yeah, it's been really tough for me to pick events lately. Actually, you and I talked about this recently. I'm like, hey, let's schedule and go to a couple events together. I haven't really been able to pick an event that I wanted to go to, like I have to be there.
Yeah.
And I think part of that's information overload. There's so much coming at it. But when I have these opportunities to pay more and be in a room with just 10 people, I'd rather do that because I can connect on a different level there. So I get distracted from Vegas. I'd rather not go there unless it's a Renee event or whatever.
Sure.
So the events I have planned right now, I'm going to an event in Arizona in April. It's a coaching event. It's all for coaches.
Nice.
And Tom Bilyeu's speaking, so that's another
pretty cool.
big deal for me.
Yeah.
But I want to meet people that coach in other industries, and a lot of it's fitness and health based stuff. But I know I can learn from them to help grow my coaching business.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's talk about the coaching business a little bit. I love coaching, so I've been on some calls with you guys. Mm-hmm. It's a cool vibe and what's there. And people probably go, hold on, Chris, you're in the mortgage space. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you do in coaching? Like, how does this all integrate and how does it all connect?
Well, I was being coached by Adam, who owns I Love Coaching. And he said, you really need to start coaching people because you bring so much to every one of our calls. Mm-hmm. I said, okay. So I started working on that. And because I'm so dialed in with trying to learn every day, it just became second nature to me to be able to share that with people. I do a whole life coaching approach. I'm not just a mortgage coach. Yeah. It's more about getting stability from the foundation, which is our health, our fitness, our family, our spirituality. Let's get that lined up first, then everything else will flow to you. Yeah. I think too many coaches today are all rah and focused on their numbers. Those numbers don't matter if everything else isn't in line first.
That's right.
How many times have you seen a professional athlete sign a $100 million contract and then get arrested and then get in trouble and do all these other things because the foundation wasn't laid first? So for me, I'm going to lay the foundation. But if you're not willing to do the work, I will fire you as a client. I'm not doing it for money. Oh, I like the money. It's nice.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it because I want to have a legacy. And people use that statement, legacy. That means you're dead. But when I'm gone, I want people to remember me as the new Eminem. And I don't mean the rapper Eminem, but a millionaire maker, right? I want to help people become whole life millionaires.
Yeah.
So what's the value of their home life? What's the value of their family life? What's the value of their business? And that's really why I'm very passionate about the coaching side of the business.
So tell us about your journey when you got into it versus where you are. What are some of those key lessons that you've learned? Because I think a lot of people want to be coaches, right? They don't know where to start. Am I even ready to do it? What have you learned through that journey?
Yeah. One of the big things is meeting people where they're at. And that was just tough for me, being a top producer in any industry I've been in. I was in the automotive industry for a long time and then originated loans, and I've always did very well. It's hard for me to relate to people that don't buy in the same way I do.
Yeah.
And that was tough as a coach. So I had to figure that out, meet them where they're at. Let's take small steps. Let's stack wins. Let's do standards over feelings.
Oh, yeah.
And then grow from there. So that was a tough challenge for me at first because I expected everybody to be as dialed in as I was on certain areas. And I'm really bad in other areas. That's why I have a coach. But when it came to efficiencies and getting things done and accountability, I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that they're not. And that's why I'm coaching them and I need to step to them and meet them where they're at.
Do you think being a coach has helped you be more coachable with your coach?
I think so. I think so. I'm a very coachable person on multiple levels. I do this thing called R&D, which is rip off and duplicate. So if you do something that works, I guarantee you I'm going to do it too. Right.
Yeah.
And that means you're super coachable when you see that. And I'm a guy that just puts it in place. If I see something, I will run with it.
And I ask that because I often find a lot of people like, I want to be coached, man. I want to be coached. I want to be coached. And it's like your first step before you even enroll in coaching, I think before you even have clarity of what you want and where you want to go is, are you coachable? Because before you have the clarity, it's like, if you're not coachable, you could come in and know everything you want, who you want to become and all that. Yeah. But then you just don't receive feedback and take action. I was talking with one of my mentors yesterday, and over 5 years we worked together, and you probably know Richard Milligan, right? And so we're talking about, which I know we'll talk about some recruiting, which is not what we call it anymore, but that paradigm shift. And he said, man, Brian, the one thing I love about you is you are the most coachable. Like you would just take an idea and you'd go implement it and go do it. For people listening out there, like how do they shift if I think people know they're not coachable, right? Like I think they actually know it. They're like, yeah, I know I don't want to listen and do what the coach is asking me because it's too hard. I don't want to change and all that. Do you think people can shift, and how do we help them shift to become more coachable?
I mean, the only way they're going to shift is when the pain makes them shift. Okay. Whether it's financial pain, relationship pain, or what I call stalemate pain. They're just not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, when I do a deep dive conversation with people before I bring them on coaching, we go deep with it.
Like an intake.
Deep dive. Oh yeah. I mean, I do just a beginning call with them, get some questions, and I come back and deep dive. But I'm going to be very serious with them and find out how coachable and committed they are and let them understand I'm not in this business just to get a paycheck from you. Yeah. That's not it. I'm in here to help you grow. I mean, my goal as a coach, and some coaches don't like this, but I want to coach them to such a high level that I can't coach them anymore and they have to find someone else. Yeah. But what that does for me though, Brian, is makes me work even harder because I don't want that to really happen ever.
Yeah.
But if it does, that's awesome. That's like when you have somebody who's a big producer comes to you and goes, hey, I've learned everything I possibly can from you, Brian. I'm going to go start my own company.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
There might be at just different speed right now and accelerating through into that next level.
I learned that as a valuable lesson early on coaching my daughter in softball when she got so good that I couldn't coach her anymore.
Yeah.
And it was time for her to find another coach. Yeah.
There's different reasons we go through. So I love that because I think a lot of people today, they know there's a value in a coach. They're not really sure where to start and how to go through it as they do it. And you're doing it on both ends, which I would say, and I've always said this, like my belief is people that are coached outperform those that are not coached. Like hands down, any day of the week, like give me someone that's had coaching and some type of personal development, and then I can work with that versus the person that's never been coached before, doesn't even believe in it. It's going to be hard to move them forward, I found, through some of those.
Well, what I find with that, though, Brian, is the people that seem to be more receptive to coaching are people that were musicians, right? They trained their whole life, athletes. They understand being taught and coached. If you don't have that background, you're not saying you can't be coached. It's just easier for me to coach you when you have some understanding of what a good coach can do for you or what a bad coach can do.
Yeah.
But as a coach, what I have learned is it's not about sharing your wins with your clients. It's about sharing your losses and how you overcame them. Anybody can get on there and share all their wins.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the struggles we had that's going to make us more relatable to be able to push through there.
Yeah. Which I think a lot of people struggle with. And conversation earlier was about people actually sharing vulnerability, actually talking through that to say, hey man, here's where I was. And like you heard us earlier talk about, man, we were putting personal development courses on credit cards. Like, like didn't have the money. But now I go, okay, different place. Would I go back and change anything? No, I'd still put it on the credit card. I would still do it and bet on me.
I mean, Tony Robbins literally wrote bad checks for the tapes from when he first started out, when he first wanted to be coached or wanted to learn.
Which tells you where people have been and where they are, right? And they move through. Okay, so we got to unpack this one because both in the mortgage business, this recruiting thing, right? So you talked about it earlier. You kind of talked about this attractive leadership model that I was really introduced to and kind of one of the pioneers with Richard along the way of like, man, like I was in this hamster wheel of like, I would recruit people, have good seasons, bad seasons. Sometimes I'd hire people and they were horrible hires. And then it was my fault, right? So I think back to, that was my fault for hiring the wrong person. I didn't even know who I wanted. I was like, you produce this? Cool. Welcome to the team. Like we didn't even know what we were hiring for as we go forward. What if, you learned through that process? Because I'm curious, like where you were and then now where you are. Let's go through this journey for people a little bit.
Gosh, I've learned a lot of lessons. So when I was on a call the other day with somebody, I said, we talked about recruiting or whatever. And I said, let's look at it. And Glenn Ross is one of my favorite movies, but they say ABC, always be closing. Well, mine was ABA, always be attracting, right?
Yes.
Always be attracting instead of recruiting, because recruiting is a 4-letter word. He's like, what do you mean by that? I said, well, how many calls a day do you get from recruiters? I mean, I can't even count them.
Yeah.
I can't even count them.
Yeah.
I mean, I run a company and they still think I'm going to come be an LO for them. Like, I don't understand.
Right.
But so what's the difference between you and me and the people that are recruiting? Well, we're actually taking action and being consistent in the marketplace, and they can relate to us because we started as originators, right? And we built something special. When I'm doing my meetings with people that I'm trying to attract to the company, I will send them a link to my YouTube channel where it's got some events I've spoken at so they can see who I am. I'll let them listen to a podcast episode, whatever, so they can see who I am other than a guy who wants them to come work for them.
That's right. Huge shift there. So you and I are on the same page with this. This is why I think we've leaned all in on personal branding, right? Yeah. When I look and go, man, the amount of people that can just go online now and they see you and they go, man, I can make a decision. Do I like Chris? Do I not like Chris? Do I trust him to help me further my career or not? And I think a lot of folks are still doing it the old way. And I hear it and see it. Just make more calls, man. It's about conversion. It's about conversion. I'm like, at some level, yes, it's about conversion of the right people, but wouldn't it be amazing? Just what if you attracted the right people, you got into a conversation and both of you are going, hey man, like over 50% of this, we already know about it. Like we're a match. Now let's figure out the other X percent and just see if things are correct. As you're doing this today, have you kind of nailed down your targeted avatar, who you're looking for to such a degree that you're like, man,
it's
I
a
just
moving
know.
Target, man.
It's a moving target. I wonder about that.
The way the market has shifted, last year we had 2 separate years.
Yeah, all in one.
First 6 months was like a 2019 year, right? Yeah. Pre-COVID. And then the next 6 months was something that I'd never seen before. Pretty much, it didn't even relate to 2008. And we were in the business then too. And it was different, right? Year. Yeah. So I look for people with high character because I know that I have a skill set that can help them grow and be successful in whichever way they choose if they want to do the work.
Yeah. So
high character. So I do have a box. I won't say what that box is because I'm sure HR firms will be mad at me for saying what that box is. But there's certain criteria that I look at on a personal level to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
For me, I used to have this box. It was like, oh, if you did 12 million, if you do this, it's 80% purchase business. They're going to be a great fit for us.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Not always the right model match.
Because how are they taught the business? Who did they work for before? What are their interests? Like they need to fit into our family we have at our company. We need to fit in that box with us. I don't want to bring somebody in that causes a lot of problems. And I look at social media as my virtual resume. And I was on a call the other day with Will Gomez. Yeah. You know, Will, we recorded the whole podcast, but the mic didn't work, which was fun.
Oh, man.
But he talks about how he's gotten so many followers on social media. When he goes to events and meets realtors, he'll say, hey, just click on my Instagram here and follow me. And they'll go, oh, you got all these. Oh yeah, we'll definitely do a meeting.
Yeah.
But it's a virtual resume.
Yeah. I love that because we've been working through that. Williams, he's come so far too. And I look at that and go, like the end game is not always to hire people. I always say if you're truly the attractive leader, the way I envision it is you're attracting people in. Doesn't always mean that we're the same jersey, but you have the same mission and beliefs. And you're out in the industry, which I think still needs massive overhaul. We can probably all agree to that. Yeah. Tell me about what if you were explaining attractive leadership to people today, they're listening to this going, hey, Chris and Brian, that sounds great, man, but I got to hire people. Like I'm in a seat that my company's saying I got to hire people. How do they shift out of that old school mindset and move forward?
That'd be fun. The new company. I mean, I see these posts all the time. Oh, we're the fastest growing mortgage company. And we hired all these people, but they don't talk about the hundreds that left, right? They talk about just the ones they brought on. I think that it's extremely important to have the right vision with the company you're with. And for me, my vision has to be big enough to fit all of my people in it.
Yeah.
And then we attract from there. Almost 80% of the people that work with me at Certified Mortgage Planners were referred to us by our current staff.
Huge.
Okay. So we have 120 plus employees. 80% of those people were referred by current staff members. Look, there's nothing better than that. Okay. Yeah. There's nothing better than that. anytime I've hired through a recruiter or it just hasn't worked out, or gone Indeed or whatever, it just doesn't fit. These people know who they are, bringing them in, and they know what's expected from them.
Yeah.
And when you get back to the language of recruiting, though, make more calls, Chris. Make more calls, Brian. Do you know what our hourly rate is? Because if that's the case, we're the most expensive telemarketers in the free world.
Ever.
Like, it doesn't make sense for Chris and Brian to be calling 100 people, right?
No.
You get the list structure down. You get the people you think we should talk to, and then we'll do it. And Dan Martell talks in the book, Buy Back Your Time, the 10-80-10 process, right? So if I can give the 10% of what I want done on the front end of recruiting, have someone else do the 80% of it, and then I can come on the 10% and close it down.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the way that it should be done.
Yeah.
Not just, hey, your sales manager or your VP of sales, whatever, go recruit all these people.
Yeah, it's changed. Let's shift to some of the audience. They're loan officers today, or even real estate agents. What would you be coaching them on this year? What should they be focused on and thinking of? Like, how do they re-enter this market? Because last year was the tale of two different markets. What are you telling your team or those students today?
It's the land of opportunity. Like, the amount of market share you can take over right now, if you do things the right way, you won't give back.
Yeah.
You will literally just dominate moving forward. There's a lot of pretenders that are out of the way. All these people that got in the business because business was good and now they're gone, great. They're out of there. I'd also tell you to go after the biggest clients possible, because those ones aren't getting the calls. If you're a loan officer and you're trying to attract new realtor partners, go talk to the whales. They're not getting the calls because people are afraid. I use the analogy, the pretty girl analogy, right? Like, they don't, those are the ones who usually aren't getting hit on. People are intimidated or afraid by that.
Sure.
I'm sure you know how that being the pretty guy, right? Being a good looking dude. So,
oh man, I've dealt with that all my life, right? Quite the opposite.
Yeah. So
But that's true.
But that's what I would do. I mean, and that's what we preach right now with our team is stay on task, be consistent, and bring value every time you meet with somebody.
See, and I love that, because I do believe that's happening today with all the realtors that have created teams, right? And you have these massive teams. They've moved companies. They've done, and you're right, they probably are not getting attention today. Let's take it a step further for those that are listening. So I call on that top team today. Like, what am I talking about? How do I get in? I'm nervous now, man. I got to make a call.
So I have a whole philosophy when they call and talk to a realtor or whatever. We start compliment. Hey, you did 40 million last year. That's great. I'm just curious, was that your goal for the year? Most of them are going to say no. If you don't mind me asking, what stopped you from getting there last year? And then they'll give you a little bit to something. Say, hey, I highly value your time. If I can meet you at Starbucks for a 15-minute meeting, I know I've got some solutions that'll help you close more transactions in 2023 than you did in 2022. Most of them are going to say yes.
Sure.
Okay. And if they don't, then you call them again next week.
Right.
Right. The only two things in this world that can stop you is yourself and a restraining order. So you do what you need to do. Right. But then I sit down with them in the face-to-face conversation we have for 15 minutes, and I literally grab my phone and I say, set a timer for 15 minutes. And I sit on the table and they're like,
what's happening?
What do you mean 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to respect your time.
Sure.
I'm going to try to go on a 6-to-1 ratio. And I learned this from Gavin Ekstrom. I don't know if you know Gavin or not, but I learned this from Gavin. I'm going to do a 6-to-1 ratio. And what that means is I'm going to ask them 6 questions to everyone they ask me. I'm not going to talk about rate, term, closing costs. It's not going to come up. I had a meeting the other day with a big real estate office, and we went in and my loan officer set it up perfectly, but I sat with them and I asked them a ton of questions. I didn't talk about price or anything else. We locked down 200 agents. We're the preferred lender there now. We had a builder we locked down yesterday.
Nice.
Did the same thing. I went in and they met with 5 lenders in one day. The builder did. But all I did was ask them questions about them.
Mm-hmm.
I went deeper with them. And I guarantee you the other loan officers that came in or companies that came in where we got the best price and rates and the fees.
Yeah.
They don't care about that.
Yeah.
You didn't ask them one thing that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I hit the 15 minutes. I ask the questions. I take some notes. I set the second appointment while I'm there. And I say, this is a great thing about certified mortgage planners. We're actually a coaching company that closes mortgages. And what do I mean by that is we coach our clients on how to be more financially savvy, right? Coach our referral partners to be as successful in any way they choose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and take these questions and get with Chris Welton, who actually coaches high producing realtors,
right,
and help us solve some of these problems. And then I'm going to bring you some solutions at the second meeting. They're like, you're not asking me for business? I don't have the right to ask you for business yet. No,
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're a good fit first.
Yeah.
Look, I know loan officers on here saying that's not going to work, or how am I going to get the business? Are you playing the short game or long game?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want all the business from the first meeting? Because as soon as something goes bad, they're going to go to somebody else.
Sure.
Okay. So take consistent action with these meetings, play the long game, because nobody else is.
Man, how true. You know, I hear it more and more now where even when people are looking to change companies or they go on these sales calls, it is, let's pitch fest. So curious, your kind of vantage point of this, do you think that is a sales issue for them, that they don't have the skills and all that there? Or do you think it's more of a confidence?
Oh, I think it's confidence. I think it's lack of leadership, like they're not getting the tools or being helped along the way, because a lot of leaders in this industry are hiding right now, right? They're missing.
Yeah. MIA.
But the confidence, and I met with one of my loan officers the other day who's done really good taking action, but he's going to meet with these two financial advisors and he was afraid.
Mm.
And I said, PJ, why are you afraid of the financial advisors? He said, well, I don't know all the products they sell. I said, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
I said, they don't know what you do. I said, what you need to tell a financial advisor is you don't work for a bank and I'm not going to take the assets from your clients. What I'm going to do is protect those assets and we're going to get to the closing table consistently and win every time.
Yeah.
That's what you need to tell a financial advisor. And I built my whole origination practice from day one when I started with financial advisors. Yeah. I literally was closing 20 plus million with no referral partners on the real estate side. It was all financial advisors. Okay.
Love that.
But again, it's about the confidence
Mm-hmm.
is a huge burden for people because they think they need to know everything.
Yeah.
You don't. You need to ask the questions and figure out what it is they really want.
Yeah. I mean, I just experienced this. So I shared this yesterday with someone that I was coaching and said, joined a new company over 60 days ago. Do you think I know all the products, programs, how to price every loan, how the entire process flow is, and everybody's name and every department? No, I do not. No. But what I do know is what I know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go deep on that and then bring people along for that journey. And so I asked that because, you know, I often see that where it's the confidence lacking and then they don't really even have maybe the skill set to back it up. So once they get in there, can they present what they actually know? And so getting their confidence. And
so a quick way to build the confidence up, and this is something I work with a lot of the loan officers at our company, is if I'm going to do sales calls today or I'm going to go to a meeting, whatever it is, I'm going to record my script 10 times on my phone and listen to it. Okay. The ones that do that have great success because they listen to themselves. And I tell them when I go on these meetings with them, because I love doing that more than anything. I love getting out of the office and going to sales calls.
Yeah.
The only reason I get more business from it than you do is because I've done 1,000 more than you have. That's it. I'm not any better than you.
Right.
I just have talked to 1,000 more people or more. Yeah. That's the only difference. It's the same thing when I speak at an event. I record myself 10 times before I go do it. Right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's practice. Are you a professional in this industry or any industry? Anybody's listening to the call, if you consider yourself a pro, how often do you practice to get better at your skill set? Mm-hmm. And the answer to most people is none at all.
None. Same in the podcast game.
Yeah.
So good transition here. One hand at a time podcast. Yeah. Man, I mean, and I've been doing mine for 3 years. And somebody asked the other day, man, why did you do it? What have you learned from it and all this stuff? So I'm going to flip it back to you. Mm-hmm. Why did you start it? And what have you learned?
Well, the reason I started it is because I was at an event with another event with Bradley and Renee.
Yeah.
With about 30 of us in a room for one full day. Okay. And they said the first thing you need to do, and this is from Bradley, and if you don't know Bradley, follow him, is create a podcast. Mm-hmm. Create a podcast. And he goes, I don't care what you have on it. Do a podcast. Get out there in front of people. I did a podcast because I wanted to share really good conversations with people that I connected with.
Yeah.
But also to connect with other people. Like for me, it's about changing other people's lives. It's not about getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
I hope that it equates into other things for me. So I set the stuff up. I jumped in. What I learned is to make sure you test your microphone. That was a problem the other day with my guy, Will Gomez, 51 minutes. Yeah. And always have a backup episode ready to go.
Yeah.
That's a big deal too. And luckily I had a podcast drop today. I had no episode because my Sunday got canceled. And then we had the problem with Will. So I had an event that I spoke at in Charleston last year at the I Love Coaching Summit. I told my guy who produces all my stuff, I said, turn it into a podcast. I'll do an intro and drop it.
Boom.
So we at least dropped it. So I would say consistency is the other thing too.
Yeah. Yeah. We've learned a lot of stuff there and now shifting to in person. I'm super excited because I was listening to some of Gary Vee's advice last year, right? And he was saying, man, how do you multi-purpose what you're doing? I'm like, well, if I bring people in person, one, I think the energy is better. I'm loving this. And then two, you have content you can gift your guest. You have content for days and clips, and you have an entire episode and all these things there. So a lot of people are like, man, I don't even know where to get started. It's like the one show, taking that time out to prep and be here and do all that stuff could produce upwards of 50 pieces of content, right? And you can use it and reuse it and reuse it. And so for those that are thinking about doing a podcast, I hear two main things. One, I don't know where to start. And two, oh, there's already enough podcasts. Those cross your mind, you believe them?
I knew where to start because I had advice from somebody.
Yeah, so you got a head start, which is huge.
Get cameras and the mics and all that stuff. The mic is super important, and I have a really nice microphone and a nice camera. I do them by myself, and I do them over a Riverside platform. There's a lot of everything out there. Mm-hmm. I'm in an abundance mindset. I don't care how many podcasts there are. My goal as a podcast host is to be the #1 downloaded podcast in the world. That's 200 million downloads an episode. I'm coming for you, Joe. I'm coming for Joe Rogan. Okay?
Big time.
But what's the difference between Joe Rogan and me? I don't know. I'm like a foot taller than this guy, so that's got to give me an advantage. I have one arm and I'm better looking. So these are all things that I can leverage to be able to beat up on Joe Rogan's numbers. But you can see how possible it is, right?
That's right.
How possible that is. So go after it. And who cares how many people are doing it? You're different than everybody else.
That's right.
Be yourself, I think, is the big thing too. Be yourself. Don't try to be Ed Milet. Don't try to be Chris Welton or Brian Covey. Be yourself, and you're going to attract other people that want to hear you.
I love it. You talk about a lot online. We really jammed on this, and you've done 75 Hard for those out there. You know, and you talk a lot about mental toughness, right? We mentioned Newman and some guys. Let's talk about what mental toughness is to you.
Man, mental toughness is big for me. You know, I grew up the son of a drug addict. Okay. So I learned very on at a young age to survival tasks. And I didn't realize that till later in life, how powerful those lessons that I learned then, right?
Sure.
From that. Unfortunately, I lost my son in 2020 and went down a super dark path for about 8 months. I didn't know who I was. Like I had lost myself. I had a really bad relationship with God at that time because I just didn't understand how that would work. But like Ed Milet says, I really enjoy the person I met on the other side of adversity. I like the version that I am today. And if I hadn't been through the things in the past, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And I really dig where I'm at right now. Yeah. Okay. And when I was on the call the other day with Damon West, and I asked Damon, is there anything that you would change before you went in prison? Is there anything you'd go back in time and change? And he said, I would just ask for more help, but I wouldn't change what I went through. And my answer is the same. I wouldn't change anything in my life that I went through. Yeah, I take that back. I would change if I could have my son here. Okay? Sure. I don't want to think that I'm crazy about that. But all the other adversity that I went through gave me the confidence to be the person that I am right now. Failed marriage, lost everything. I mean, I've been through it. But that's my resume, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I'm able to help other people. And it's our responsibility to help those people 10, 8, 6 years ago who we were. Yeah. And I didn't understand that. So adversity and mental toughness, those you have to be mentally tough to succeed in any environment consistently. And the only thing you can do for that is help yourself. I mean, just really dig into reading. I meditate a lot. There's just a lot of things I do to stay on track. And I have the best spouse in the world. And she really helps me stay on track as well.
We have to, man. So yeah, shout out to the spouses out there, especially for driven individuals like ourselves that are there. And I love you sharing your story because I know some of it, right? Mm-hmm. And when we were together, it's like, man, we opened up a lot about what we'd all been through. And your vulnerability and what you shared, I love because I think a lot of times people are like, man, I can't get over that story. I can't get over what happened in the past. And you hear your story and you go, well, Chris has moved forward. How do I move forward, right? And then take that and honor my past and move it. So I'm curious for you, as you look at this kind of like mental toughness, growth mindset, about abundance mentality and all that stuff, what are the things you're doing to build that? Because I think it's something, it's built and learned. It's not like none of us were born with it, right? So how are you learning that and improving upon that?
Consistent discipline. My daily routine's extremely dialed in. that gives me wins in the beginning of the day. So if I do 4 or 5 things every day, I stack wins. So if something comes at me, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not eating right, if I'm not doing all those things, when adversity comes at me, I react in a negative manner. And I try to think of this is happening for me and not to me.
Yeah.
I know it's tough for a lot of people to think that way, but it really is. I don't let it get me down because this too shall pass. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can talk about there, but these are just challenges and they're put in our way for a reason and they test us. Sometimes the test stays harder than the others.
So I went back through the last year and we were clarifying my message and I was realizing it kind of started at the whole Amplify. I'm like, man, what is my message? And we went back to one word, resiliency. Mm-hmm. I thought about the times in my life that have been knocked down, fired, cut from teams, dumped, injuries, like all that stuff. I'm like, man, I have a pattern of being resilient. Like I didn't always get it right. I got knocked down a ton. 07, 08, lost it all.
Yeah.
Both of our kids, people can do the math real quick. 14, 15-year-old, born right in the middle of a housing crisis.
Of course, there's nothing else to do.
And I could have looked back, I go, thank you, God, right in the middle of that. Yeah. But imagine if I had not learned those lessons that went through. And I listen to your story, I think about, we rebranded the show of finding your competitive edge. Yeah. I mean, that is your competitive edge. I think when I think about you, I think about resiliency. I think about somebody that doesn't say, hey man, I wasn't given this or given that. I'm going to work with what I got. I see your workout videos in the morning. I just got to say, like, it inspires me. And I'm pretty hardcore. My workouts, I'm jamming pretty good. But I go, man, Chris is in there and he's like strapping up with like weights behind him, pulling sleds and doing whatever you can do. And where does that come from? I mean, because I watch it just go, you're different than you were even a year ago, right?
Man, that's 75 hard. And I'm going to do it again in March because I had so much growth from it. When I look back and I revisit my year, all the success I had, a lot of it had to do with the mental discipline and toughness I learned from 75 hard. And then my drive to get better.
So people may not know 75 hard. I find that to be crazy. If you don't know Andy Frisella and 75 hard, look it up. But give them a little quick, little insight. That'd
be great if people didn't know it or didn't listen to this because we have new listeners, right?
That's right.
So 75 hard is a mental toughness challenge. You work out twice a day for 45 minutes. One of the exercises has to be outside. They have to be at least 4 hours apart, the exercise. A lot of people don't realize that part.
Yeah.
You drink a gallon of water a day, read 10 pages in a book, no alcohol, and be on a diet or a meal plan or whatever like that. Yeah. So for me, the diet part was easy because I was eating bad. So I just cut out a lot of fast food and did those types of things. I'm not a big drinker, so that part was easy as well. The struggle is the amount of time it did take away from my wife. But she went on a lot of the outdoor workouts with me. But when I did 75 hard, I completed it in 5 different states.
I remember this.
Yeah, I was traveling a lot for work and family and stuff. The last day of 75 hard, I did a workout at 5 a.m. in Las Vegas. I got on a plane. I flew to Los Angeles to meet with family. And I finished at Newport Beach, my outdoor workout in Newport Beach.
That's not a bad place to finish.
That's not. And one of the times we were flying back from Denver and our plane got delayed and we didn't get in until 2 a.m. and I hadn't done my outdoor workout yet. The rule is you have to do it before you go to bed. It doesn't have to be the same 24-hour period, but it has to be before you go to bed. So we got home. My wife and I went for a 45-minute outdoor workout.
That is discipline. Anybody listening, and if you're wanting to test yourself, that is the program, right? Like, don't try to sort through all these other.
No, don't do the 75 medium or the salt. Like, just don't do it. And I've had so many people come to me and go, I can do all of it except this part. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't matter. It's okay. It's not for everybody.
That's right.
Not for everybody. And then I did the 30 days of it right after that. 2 weeks off, did 30 days again. And then in September, I did the David Goggins Challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Which is run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. But I did 2 extra miles because I turned 50 that week. Oh. My feet are still feeling it. Oh, yeah.
The unrequired.
The unrequired.
Oh, wow. That's where it goes.
But right now I'm training to do the Murph on Memorial Day.
I was going to ask you because I saw you post about that. And I immediately was like, hey, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So most people probably know what that is, but Lieutenant Michael Murphy, and you'll see that workout out there at the mile in the front, mile on the back. And then you got 100 pull-ups.
Yep. 200 push-ups,
300 air squats.
Yeah. Ooh. With a 20-pound weight vest on.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's do what's actually standard and do that, which is incredible. For people that don't know, like you're doing it with one arm, one hand. Yeah. So any excuses out there, And I think about that too for you. It's like, man, you're showing people what winning is like showing up and being that example. How important is that for you now to show up as that best version of yourself? Because you've mentioned it. We both believe in that and everything. And you're already starting to do that. How important and what motivates you to do that every day?
It's a responsibility. You know what I mean? It's my responsibility to show up the best version of myself every day for my family first, right? To make sure that I'm the best husband and father that I possibly can be. Yeah. But all the things that I do equates to that for me. It doesn't allow me to be who I want to be if I don't accomplish the goals I put in place in front of me. And the physical challenges have just become part of that. Just something that I really enjoy doing. And it keeps me regimented and dialed in on my workouts in the morning and staying on task. But showing up, I mean, it's hard. I have days where I don't get to do that, where I struggle. But I'm really tough on myself. Yeah. Because I want to be that best version possible. And I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but I started this philosophy about 6 months ago that anytime I meet someone new, I want them to remember me, because if that's the last person I ever meet, I want it to be a good interaction. So it's been
different perspective.
Yeah. And I've been really working on that, because I don't pay attention a lot. I drift and people I come across as not caring sometimes. When I meet
not
people.
being in the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got two final questions, some important ones I'd like to do at the end. So what's a truth that you would want to pass on, or that you would want people to know that you firmly believe, like a truth that you just, unequivocally, like this is it, something in your life that you've experienced, to be true?
That I'm worth it. That I'm worth it. That I'm worth taking the time and the effort and putting it in and continuing to grow. That I give myself permission to do those things.
That's powerful. Yeah. For a lot of people listening out there, they need to rewind that and hear that again and say that to themselves. That if you're listening, you are worth it.
Definitely, you're worth it.
I think for many of us, we go through, and I think about even resiliency, and I've talked to people, they go back through their past and they wonder, and they kind of wander through life like that. And it's like, yes, you are worth it. God put you here for a reason.
Yeah. And you could start that today.
Right now.
Right. I mean, and for me, I go back and I leveraged my past to grow from it, not to live there and be sad about it or anything else. And I try to push off that and get growth when it comes to it. But you're worth it. And the transference of belief from other individuals, people that actually say they believe in you, is way more important than the transference of wealth. I mean, I just think that if I tell the people that I care about I believe in them, that's worth way more than any dollar amount I can pay them.
Any day of the week.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, last one. What's something you believed maybe a few years ago or early on in life that you now have said, okay, I don't really believe that anymore?
Well, that's a tough one, Brian, man. Wow.
I know, because in my life, I'll let you think about it. There's been things that I thought were this way. Like one of those was, I thought everybody that had created wealth and were successful had to cheat their way through, or they did shortcuts, they got lucky. Like all these things, I'm like, it wasn't just working hard and being consistent over time and doing the right things.
Yeah, for me, I think it's that everybody has challenges in life. I thought I was the only one that had those challenges. I lived in a neighborhood in Indiana in a really big, beautiful home, and I thought everybody else was dialed in and I was the only one struggling with relationship issues and all this stuff. And then I come to find out that's not the case.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, it's the fact that everybody has issues and struggles. And once you understand that, you should feel more comfortable about being vulnerable with what you have going on.
How true is that? Yeah, a lot of times we do think, it's just me. I'm the only one going through it. And you said it earlier, ask for help. Like Damon had said it, right? I would have asked for help sooner. So anybody listening out there, guys, that's why we do the show, is to provide help and like give you guidance. Because I think about, I know we both align on this, is I want to help the former versions of Brian and Chris and these guys years ago. They're like, I'm here, but I want to be there. We might just be further down the journey. We might have had a few people that invest in us and gave us some guidance, and we go, okay, cool, we'll take action. But we're all on the same journey. And I do believe we're in this together to share those experiences and to inspire people to take action wherever you're at, to wherever you want to go, right?
Yep.
My friend, I appreciate you. I knew this would be fire. I knew it'd be fun. And so I love, we covered a lot of different topics, from mortgage and all this attractive leadership to mindset, and 75 hard, and then coaching stuff, podcast, all this. Hope we all realize this is all integrated. This is all about who you are becoming. And I'm excited because the reason I want to bring Chris on is I want to show you guys, no matter where you are, where you want to go, find your competitive edge. Find what makes you uniquely different and go out in the world and serve people the best you can. So thank you for being one of our first in-person guests in Nashville. And guys, make sure you like, subscribe, leave all the ratings, tell us what you liked about the show, any guests we should have on there, and we will catch you on the next episode. See ya.